hopefully at this point you guys have come up with an idea that you want to write a story about and have kind of like set up, I want it to be in this genre, I want it to be this audience. So like YA fantasy or like a autobiography for teenagers. I don't know. So hopefully you at least have a basis of what you're going to write about. All right. So today we're going to start building that idea into a physical location that you can include in your story. All right. Yay. I already said all that. Okay, so why is world building important? What do you think? Why is it important to know places, setting, things like that for our story? This is the setting of your world. Readers don't want to read about a character that's just kind of floating around in nothingness. You know, they want to feel like they are grounded in this new world. People generally read to be transported somewhere else, to understand the experiences of somebody else. The more that you build up your world, the more realistic your characters will feel, and it'll directly impact your plot, how your world is set up, how much you have created and crafted. The more you build up your world, the better your writing will be, because you'll have more details that you can give along the way, more kind of like food for your reader's imagination. All right. So today we're going to get into a lot of the details about what you want to figure out for your world. Okay, so why do you think it's a good idea to start your world building before you even start plotting out your story? Your world will definitely impact your plot. Your world your characters lives in influences what your characters know, how they live, what choices they make, consequences of their actions. Your characters are your plot, basically. So the world influences your characters, the characters influence your plot. That all works together. And then the rules of your world are the constraints that your characters and the plots are like ruled by. You know, like you can only have you can't have like anything, like if you're writing a fantasy world, you're not going to bring aliens in with machine guns, right? That doesn't make any sense. You're in a fantasy world. I mean, I guess you could if that was part of it, but like it's not going to make sense and tie together. Okay, why do you think it's a good idea to do world building before you start detailing your characters? Like you can have some ideas of what your characters are going to be like, but why might it be beneficial to do world building before building up your characters really in depth? The location where they grow up, the culture where they grow up, it kind of like tells you who they're going to be. The world will tell you what they can be, like what jobs can they have, like what knowledge do they have, that kind of thing. So it'll help detail what they look like, how they act, what job they have, how they speak, how they dress, what experiences they've had in life, what their abilities and skills are, even what relationships they have. So your world building will basically affect every aspect of your character. So again, you can have these ideas and like start coming up with character ideas and all of this stuff, but your world building will really help flesh out your characters and make them feel even more real. All right, so I have created and shared with you guys a world building template, which has pretty much everything I could think of that would be useful to use to create your world. Okay, so in a little bit, I'm just going to let you guys free to start filling that out. But just before we do that, I'm going to just show you guys kind of some examples of like how I've used it and what I've done. So I really like using OneNote. I don't know if any of you guys have used that, but it's basically just like this really great place where you can organize everything into like files and pages and everything. So this is an example of one of my stories that I haven't published yet. And I have this whole like list of world building stuff. So I drew a map. My story is going to take place on this continent. Here are my countries. I've mapped out like distances. I've even started mapping out like how long would it take to travel from here to here. Over here, I have like the kinds of technology that this world has, the kind of magic this world has. I've even come up with like how they measure time, like years and months and days. Like I got really into this, guys. These are like the basics. And then I came up with the history of my world. And I came up with a timeline of history that's relevant to my plot. So my book starts like right here. This is when my book starts. And I figured out all of this history for things that impacted potentially my plot in this book or other books. And I have like significant events. I have details about the two main kingdoms. I have their government, their military, crime and punishment, currency, taxes, appearance of the people, their races, what languages they speak, what assets and trade they have, and then how their relationships are with other countries. And then I have just like other countries that are around the area. I got like, again, I went really into detail with this world. I'm not saying you need to do this, but this is an example. Some detail about the capital cities. And then I have lots of detail about the culture, their religions, any traditions they have, holidays, things that might come up. You know, I'm not going to talk about all of this in my book, but it might come up. It'll be interesting to talk about, you know, with my characters sometimes. I have some different types of plants and animals that I created for my story. And then I came up with the fashion. What do my people wear? What do they look like? And I came up with, you know, Pinterest. Pinterest is great. All of these kind of styles of clothes, of hair, weapons. What do they look like? I have architecture, different architecture of my different countries, what styles they have. And this is a fantasy world, but I like based it on like Gaelic, Scottish culture, and then like Italian kind of culture. So I like based it off of things from our world just to make it like a little easier, right? To not just come up with crazy stuff off the top of my head. I like talked about how they travel, how they communicate. I came up with some religions that were important. And then just like more kind of like beliefs about things. So I have like a lot of information. I'm not going to talk about all of it in my book, but I came up with all of the stuff because you never know when it might be useful. So here is your world building template. I put in some information here. So you only really need to plan out what's necessary for your story, but everything is going to influence your characters. And, you know, your characters travel, your characters eat lunch, your characters, you know, dress appropriately for the seasons. So you do actually need to think about all of those things at one point or another. And you probably want to write it down somewhere so you're consistent, you know. The more you know, the more realistic your story will feel. Again, you don't need to put all of it in your book or your story. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. But you as an author are always going to know more than the reader anyway. So it's important for you to know stuff. You can always come back and add or change things as you're writing. Like you don't have to have it all figured out right now. It doesn't need to be set in stone. It's just helpful. I have just kind of general stuff for like what time period is it in? Like, do you have magic or technology? What's your civilization level? I have a lot of setting information like names of countries, places, things, architecture, stuff like that. And then I have a culture section and government, holidays, religion, mythology and legends, what language, gender roles, if there are those. And then history, if there are any important historical events that impact your story. And then this is a section for magic. So if you're not writing anything with magic, you might want to skip this, but you can use some of this for technology too, if you're writing like a sci-fi, or if you have any unique technology that influences your book. And then just ideas for like names. It's kind of a great idea to just have a name bank for like different people that you can use, different places that you can use, titles of important people, societies, government, you know. Do they call people sir or ma'am or lady, you know? And then anything else that you can think of, you can just like add at the bottom. And then next time we're going to talk about characters. So if you don't finish fleshing out world building where you're happy today, you should work on it a little bit at home because we're going to move on and next time talk about characters.